is greater than she was invited to her billionaire ex-husband's birthday party and showed up in a $700 million jet with the twins he never knew existed. So get this, she gets an invite to her billionaire ex-husband's 50th birthday party and shows up in a $700 million jet with his twins. The ones he never knew existed. It's not just an invitation, it's a declaration of war wrapped in ivory paper. One headline-worthy sentence that merges betrayal, wealth, and revelation into a single scandalous moment. Because when Amara Sterling returns to Manhattan, she isn't coming as Cole Harrington's forgotten ex-wife, she's coming as his reckoning. A silver jet sliced through a sky the color of old memories, clouds breaking apart over Manhattan's skyline. From her seat by the window, Amara watched the city unfold like a wound that never quite healed. Sharp, familiar, glinting under the winter sun. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, the same eyes that once trembled before cameras and tabloids, now cool and unreadable. In the background, the hum of engines felt almost ceremonial, like the overture to a story she'd waited 5 years to finish. Across from her, Julian and Jade played quietly, their laughter soft against the jet's sterile luxury. Two small reminders that not all storms destroy, some create. They had his eyes, his composure, but her strength. Amara's white silk suit gleamed in the cabin light, a far cry from the naive lace gown she'd once worn down the aisle of a man who built empires out of ego. Every stitch on her sleeve was armor. Every breath, control. The woman returning to New York was not a casualty, she was the consequence. Below, the Hudson shimmered around a mansion of glass and steel, the empire of reflections, Cole Harrington's latest monument to himself. The same man who shattered her dignity now stood inside, celebrating 50 years of life and power, and soon he'd come face to face with the one thing he couldn't buy back, the truth he never saw coming. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. May God bless my first subscriber from this story. I've missed you all so much. It's been a tough ride with some technical issues, but by God's grace, we're getting everything back on track. Thank you for sticking with me. Your support means everything. Before we begin, I want to say a little prayer over everyone watching, especially the women. To the women, may God strengthen you, comfort you, and fill your heart with peace and favor. To the men, may God guide you, bless your efforts, and give you wisdom in all you do, and may God's protection rest on every single one of you. Amen. If you're ready for today's story, hit subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're watching from, my USA and UK family. I see you. And please, watch till the end, because tomorrow I'll be dropping another story you wouldn't want to miss. Now, let's get into the story. The invitation had arrived in Capri like a ghost from another life, but Amara didn't need closure. She needed a stage, and Cole had just built her the perfect one. The hum of the Gulfstream's engines was almost symphonic, a low, steady rhythm beneath the polished silence of wealth. Cream leather seats, brushed gold fixtures, and hand-stitched embroidery bearing the insignia A.S., the initials the world admired, but few knew belonged to Amara Sterling. Even at 40,000 feet, power had a texture, and she had woven it herself. She leaned back in her seat, fingers gliding over the armrest's mahogany inlay, and gazed through the glass. Below, the Atlantic stretched endless and cold, Manhattan still hidden beyond the horizon, the city that had once crowned her queen, then buried her alive. Julian and Jade sat across from her, twin reflections of a legacy no one yet knew existed. They were playing a quiet game with sleek crystal tokens, miniature skyscrapers that glinted under cabin light. Julian's eyes flicked up, curious. Mama, is New York bigger than Capri? Amara's lips curved faintly. It used to feel that way, she said. He nodded, satisfied with an answer that carried more weight than he could understand. Jade pressed her face to the window, her voice a whisper. It looks like it's waiting for you. The words landed with eerie precision. Maybe the child was right. Maybe the city was waiting, holding its breath for the woman it thought had vanished for good. A soft rustle drew Amara's gaze to Elena, seated opposite her, sharp, composed, the woman who had stood by her when the world had turned against her. Elena's eyes flicked to the stack of gala documents on the table. You don't have to do this in person, she said gently. Power moves don't always need witnesses. Amara turned her head, eyes still on the clouds parting ahead. Sometimes they do. Elena hesitated. Just remember, revenge burns as beautifully as it destroys. I don't want you caught in the ashes. For a moment, Amara said nothing. Then she smiled, soft and deliberate, the kind of smile that could silence a room. Is greater than. This isn't revenge, Elena, she said, voice smooth as silk. It's closure wrapped in couture. Outside, the jet began its descent. The skyline rose from the haze like a ghost materializing towers of glass and ambition, catching the morning light. The Hudson shimmered beneath them, a silver artery winding through the city that had once devoured her reputation. Amara's pulse stayed calm, steady. The sight of Manhattan no longer hurt. It thrilled. Every rooftop below was a reminder of how far she'd climbed without him. Elena peered out the window, whispering almost to herself. The Empire of Reflections. It's impossible to miss. Amara followed her gaze, eyes narrowing as the mansion's glass walls caught the dawn. Is greater than good, she murmured. Then he'll see me coming. The jet descended lower, cutting through the clouds like a blade. Manhattan was waiting, and so was her reckoning. They called it the Empire of Reflections, a monument of glass, steel, and vanity rising from the Hudson's edge like a crown forged from light. The architectural magazines described it as a symbol of transparency and triumph, but those who knew Cole Harrington understood better. Nothing about Cole had ever been transparent. The media coverage looped on every Manhattan screen. America's golden mogul turns 50, Harrington celebrates in style. Drones swept across the shimmering estate, capturing angles designed to impress the cascading infinity pool, the floating ballroom suspended above the river, the marble drive lined with imported olive trees. The voiceover called him visionary, self-made, the man who redefined luxury real estate. No one mentioned the lawsuits quietly settling behind closed doors, or the mounting debts stitched together with public bravado. Inside the mansion, Serena Harrington adjusted a vase of white orchids for the third time. Every movement was sharp, controlled the performance of perfection she'd learned to master. She wore diamonds worth more than most homes, but her reflection in the glass wall trembled slightly when she looked too long. Too many lilies, she muttered to the event planner. They're funereal. This is a celebration, not a eulogy. Cole's voice drifted from behind her, smooth, calculated charm. Relax, Serena. Everything looks perfect. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, phone in hand, half listening, half texting. The faintest frown touched his brow as he scanned a message marked urgent, investor call, delayed payments. He slipped the phone into his pocket before she noticed. Serena turned, watching him closely. You don't seem excited, she said. It's your birthday, your empire, your night. Cole smiled, the kind of smile that used to sell towers and silence questions. Excitement is for people who still have something to prove. She tilted her head, the barest edge of a smirk forming. Like your ex-wife? He didn't flinch. Amara's not coming. She hasn't set foot in New York since she left. Serena let out a soft laugh, low and cutting. Of course she's not. That's why I invited her. Cole's gaze snapped toward her. You what? Her tone dripped with false innocence. Just a gesture. A reminder that we're thriving, and she's not. He exhaled through his nose, forcing calm. You don't bait ghosts, Serena, especially ones who know where the bodies are buried. She brushed past him, perfume lingering like poison. Please, she's old news. If she had any power left, we'd have seen it. Cole turned back to the window, eyes narrowing as the river reflected his own image. A man of glass, staring into glass, haunted by what he couldn't control. Outside, the last light of dusk shimmered over the Hudson. Somewhere beyond the skyline, a silver jet sliced through the clouds, heading straight for him. Serena's voice echoed from behind, smug and certain. Is greater than. Even if she does come, she's just the past. Cut to Amara's jet touching down. The gala was already in full bloom, crystal chandeliers scattering light like diamonds, champagne flutes clinking, laughter loud and hollow. Manhattan's elite had gathered beneath the glass dome of Cole Harrington's mansion, all eager to orbit the man who built their skyline. Paparazzi lined the marble steps, flashes strobing against the mirrored facade. Limousines came and went, in a procession of wealth and vanity. But then a murmur rippled through the crowd, a subtle shift, the kind that precedes a storm. A sleek silver Maybach glided to a stop at the base of the red-carpeted stairs. The door opened, and she stepped out. Amara Sterling, the name that once headlined every scandal column, emerged in a white tailored suit that caught the lights and turned them into armor. The suit was sculpted perfection. Structured shoulders, silk lapels, and a faint shimmer that whispered power. Her heels clicked like metronomes of control. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. The photographers didn't recognize her at first. She was too composed, too radiant, too untouchable. Then came the gasps, the flurry of camera shutters, the collective inhale of Manhattan society witnessing a resurrection. Inside, Serena Harrington was mid-greeting with a cluster of socialites when the murmurs reached her. Her smile froze before her body did. "No," she whispered, turning toward the doors. And there Amara stood, framed by the ballroom's glass archway, a vision in white. "Darling," one of the women whispered beside Serena, "isn't that your husband's ex-wife?" Serena's throat tightened. "Not anymore," she managed, her voice brittle. Amara's eyes found hers, instantly calm, unbothered, lethal. She walked forward with the grace of someone who had already won. Each step echoed through the marble hall, every guest parting instinctively, like waves before a queen. Cole turned at the sound. The confident mogul, the man who'd weathered billion-dollar negotiations and international scandals, froze. For the first time in years, his composure cracked. "Amara," someone murmured nearby. "She looks incredible." Serena forced a smile, stepping forward as though reclaiming her stage. "Amara," she said sweetly, voice tight around the edges. "How surprising to see you here. I almost didn't recognize you." Amara's smile was polite, almost pitying. "Don't worry, Serena. Reinvention can be hard to recognize when you've never experienced it." The surrounding laughter was soft, restrained, but it stung. Serena's hand tightened around her clutch, knuckles whitening. Amara moved with poise through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries with old acquaintances. Every nod, every faint smile was surgical, reclaiming space, rewriting memory. She didn't need to raise her voice. Her presence alone did the speaking. She hadn't brought the twins. Not yet. Their arrival would come later, the final act. For now, this was about reclaiming her name, her narrative, her power. From across the room, Cole finally approached, his reflection fractured in the mirrored walls. "Amara." His voice was low, uncertain. "I didn't think you'd actually come." She turned, eyes glinting like frost beneath chandeliers. "You never did think much, Cole." The ballroom shimmered beneath 1,000 lights, a living constellation of money, ambition, and perfectly rehearsed smiles. Through the crystal walls, Manhattan glowed, a city that worshipped power and spectacle. Tonight, both belonged to Amara Sterling. Her presence had shifted the air. Whispers chased her through the room like perfume trails. "Did you see her suit? She looks untouchable." After everything he did to her, she still showed up. Amara caught fragments of their awe and disbelief as she glided past. She didn't need to eavesdrop. Every whisper was fuel, every stare a small victory. Cole, determined to reclaim control of the evening, circled back to her side with a glass of champagne and the kind of smile that once fooled her. "You certainly know how to make an entrance," he said lightly. "Only because you taught me how to exit," Amara replied, eyes never leaving the skyline. He chuckled, but the laugh didn't reach his eyes. "Still sharp, I see. Tell me, Amara, what brings you back to New York? Surely not just to revisit old wounds." She turned to face him fully, the mirrored walls reflecting their confrontation from a dozen angles, the power couple they once were, and the battlefield they'd become. "Oh, I didn't come to revisit anything," she she said softly. I came to collect. Before he could respond, a passing socialite interrupted a woman draped in an A.S. atelier gown, unaware that she wore Amara's empire across her skin. Amara, darling, you look divine. Have you met the mysterious investor Cole keeps teasing us about? They say it's a woman. Cole's jaw tightened just slightly, but Amara's smile didn't waver. I've heard whispers, she said, her tones silk over steel. She sounds fascinating. The woman laughed and drifted away, leaving the two of them suspended in unspoken tension. Cole leaned in, voice low. You always did love riddles. But be careful, Amara, this is a dangerous game you're playing. She met his gaze with quiet finality. Then it's fortunate, Cole, that I designed the board. Across the hall, Elena watched from a corner poised, calculating, her phone never leaving her hand. Upstairs, the twins waited in the penthouse suite. Jade sat cross-legged on the carpet, holding a photo of their mother in a wedding dress. Julian, the more serious of the two, stared out the window at the glowing city. Do you think he'll know it's us? Jade asked. Elena smiled gently. Oh, he'll know, she said. He just won't be ready. Downstairs, Amara's poise remained flawless, even as the night pulsed with tension. The orchestra swelled. Laughter grew louder. Cole turned away to greet a senator, pretending he was still the king of this glittering empire. Amara's phone buzzed. A single text flashed on the screen from her CFO. It's done. You're now the majority shareholder. Her reflection in the glass smiled back, calm, lethal, radiant. The empire of reflections had just changed ownership. The lights dimmed, and the hum of conversation softened into an expectant hush. Cole Harrington took the stage beneath a cascade of golden spotlights, his confidence radiating like the skyline beyond the glass walls. To the crowd, he was still America's golden mogul, the man who could turn steel and glass into dreams. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice smooth as champagne. Tonight isn't just about celebration, it's about legacy. The audience leaned in, glasses glinting. Cameras flashed. Behind him, a massive digital display shimmered with the logo of Harrington Holdings, merging into another A.S. atelier. A ripple of intrigue moved through the ballroom. Cole smiled, pausing for effect. For months, my team and I have worked tirelessly on a partnership that will redefine modern luxury. Tonight, I am proud to announce a historic merger between Harrington Holdings and the visionary fashion house A.S. Atelier. Applause erupted, elegant and rehearsed. Serena beamed from the front row, her diamond necklace glittering like armor. Cole continued, the mastermind behind A.S. remains one of the most elusive figures in the industry, a creative force who has revolutionized couture and commerce alike. I can think of no better partner to usher in this next era. The spotlight swung toward the crowd, searching for the mysterious figure. Amara's heels clicked softly against marble as she stepped forward. The murmurs began immediately, confused, disbelieving, electrified. She ascended the stage with the slow, unhurried grace of someone who had already won. Cole's smile faltered. Amara? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she accepted the pen offered by his assistant, flipped open the leather portfolio, and signed the merger papers with deliberate precision. Every stroke of her pen felt like a verdict. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm, almost tender. You built your world out of glass, Cole, she said, handing him the signed document. I just learned how to own it. The audience gasped. Cameras exploded in flashes of light. Reporters surged forward like waves, their voices overlapping. Mrs. Sterling, are you saying? Did you just acquire Harrington Holdings? Is A.S. Atelier you? Serena rose halfway from her seat, eyes wide, lips trembling. The diamond smile she'd worn all night shattered into disbelief. Cole's lawyer rushed to his side, whispering frantically, flipping through the documents. Cole's expression hardened, then cracked realization dawning that he'd signed away control without even knowing it. On stage, Amara turned toward the press, a faint smile touching her lips. The light caught her white suit, the symbol of her reclamation, and for a moment she looked every inch the queen of the empire he thought he ruled. Behind her, the massive glass walls reflected the chaos, flashing lights, frozen faces, a dynasty collapsing in real time. The orchestra faltered mid-note. The room held its breath, and as Cole's world splintered under the weight of her silence, Amara Sterling stood perfectly still, the calm at the center of his storm. The ballroom was still vibrating from the shock of Amara's revelation. The deal had detonated like a bomb, and now silence hung over the crowd, taut, expectant, fragile. The only sound was the faint hum of the city bleeding through the glass walls. Cole stood frozen on stage, his empire slipping through his fingers while the press snapped photo after photo. Serena's diamond-studded mask of composure was crumbling fast. Her eyes darted between her husband and Amara, searching for a lifeline that no longer existed. Then Amara spoke again, her voice soft, measured, yet sharp enough to cut through the static. "Is greater than... There's one more thing you should know before you toast, Cole." The orchestra stopped mid-note. Even the servers froze, silver trays suspended in the air. All eyes turned toward her. The double doors at the back of the room opened. Two small figures appeared, a boy and a girl, hand in hand, dressed impeccably in miniature Harrington black tie. Their presence was surreal, like a reflection from a past Cole didn't remember creating. Jade's curls shimmered under the lights. Julian's steady gaze was all Amara, calm, knowing, old for his years, but their eyes unmistakably his. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Serena's champagne flute slipped from her hand and shattered against the marble floor, the sound echoing like a crack in glass. Cole's lips parted, his voice barely a whisper. "My God!" Amara didn't flinch. She descended from the stage slowly, her white suit catching the light as she walked toward her children. She knelt, smoothing Jade's hair before guiding them forward. Julian looked up, voice clear and innocent in the stunned silence. "Is greater than Mama, is that him?" The words struck harder than any headline could. The whispers ignited instantly, the crowd surging with speculation, awe, disbelief. Cameras began flashing again, desperate to capture history unfolding. Cole stumbled a step forward, his confidence gone. "Amara, what is this?" She met his gaze, steady and unyielding. "Your children, Cole. The only legacy you didn't earn." Gasps rippled again, louder this time. Reporters jotted frantically, the click of shutters filling the air like rainfall. Serena backed away, one trembling hand covering her mouth, her world splintering in real time. Amara turned toward the crowd, her arm around the twins, regal and composed amid the chaos. "You see," she said evenly, "some empires are built from money, others from what's left when the money means nothing." Cole's face was pale, his eyes wide, trapped between recognition and regret. The glass walls reflected it all. The power, the fall, the truth. Flashes stung the air as Amara guided Julian and Jade toward the exit, the crowd parting for her like she was both ghost and goddess. By the time she reached the doors, every camera in the room was aimed at her, and in that frozen, glittering moment surrounded by the ruin of his own making, Cole Harrington finally understood what it meant to lose everything. The gala was over. What had begun as a glittering celebration now lay in ruins, shattered glass, toppled champagne flutes, and whispers scattered like ashes. The guests had fled, the photographers gone, the orchestra silenced. Only two figures remained beneath the cold gleam of the chandeliers. Amara stood near the vast window, her reflection fractured by the panes of glass. One woman, 100 shards. Cole approached slowly, his once impeccable tuxedo now disheveled, his voice stripped of charm. "Why?" he said finally, his tone more plea than accusation. "Why didn't you tell me?" Amara didn't turn. She traced her fingers along the glass, watching her reflection blur against the skyline. "You mean about the twins?" she asked softly. "Or about the woman I had to become to survive you?" He flinched, guilt flashing across his face. "You had no right to keep them from me." Now she turned. "No right?" Her laugh was bitter, quiet. "You humiliated me in front of the world. Cole, remember that night? The charity gala, the one where you announced our divorce before I even knew we were having one? He swallowed hard. She stepped closer, her words razor-sharp but steady. The next morning I left. 3 days later, I found out I was pregnant. And do you know what terrified me more than motherhood? The idea of raising them in your world, where loyalty is a currency and people are assets to be traded. Cole's mask cracked. Amara, I didn't know. I was stupid, angry, selfish, she finished for him. You measured love in returns, affection in headlines. I didn't hide them out of vengeance, Cole. I hid them because I wanted them to know safety before power, kindness before money, me before you. He ran a hand through his hair, his composure unraveling. Are they happy? He asked, voice breaking. They're children, she said simply, which means they're unbroken. For now. A long silence followed, the kind that fills every corner of a room once truth has been spoken. Finally he whispered, Can I see them? Amara studied him, the man she once loved, the empire he'd become, and the ruin he stood in now. You will, she said, but on my terms. No headlines, no PR spin, just you and the father they've never met. He nodded, tears glinting under the fading light. You really built it all without me. She looked past him, at the city glittering beyond the glass. No, Cole, she said. I built it because of you. He watched her leave, her silhouette dissolving into the night, poised, untouchable, free. When the doors closed behind her, the silence roared. Cole turned toward the glass walls of his mansion. Dozens of fractured reflections stared back a man who'd once thought he could own the world. Now, all he owned was shards. Midnight had draped itself over Manhattan, the city pulsing softly beneath the haze of lights. From the penthouse on the 72nd floor, the skyline looked almost tranquil, as if unaware that it had just witnessed the quietest coup in its history. Amara stood barefoot before the window, a silk robe wrapped loosely around her. The glass reflected a woman both familiar and foreign, no longer the trembling bride who once wept in the back of a limousine, but the calm, poised architect of her own resurrection. Behind her, the twins slept soundly in the adjoining room. Julian had one arm flung protectively over Jade, their faces soft in the amber glow of the nightlight. For them, it was just another evening. For their mother, it was the ending she'd rewritten with her own hands. The soft buzz of her phone broke the silence. Notifications flooded the screen, each headline louder than the last. Ex-wife of billionaire Cole Harrington acquires majority control of his company. The woman in white. How Amara Sterling outsmarted New York's power king. A.S. Atelier revealed, the mogul behind the mask. She scrolled for a moment, then stopped, her expression unreadable. Power didn't thrill her anymore. Victory didn't taste like vengeance. It tasted like freedom. Across the river, in the vast glass mansion that once symbolized dominance, Cole sat alone. His tie hung loose, his reflection fractured by the windows around him. The television replayed footage of the gala, Amara's calm voice, her white suit gleaming beneath the lights, the twins stepping forward. He leaned back, whispered to no one, You always were stronger than me. Back in the penthouse, Amara closed her laptop, the faint hum of the city rising to fill the silence. She poured herself a glass of champagne, not for celebration, but for remembrance. She walked to the window, her eyes tracing the skyline, from the towers Cole built to the ones she now owned. Her empire wasn't made of concrete and steel. It was built from lessons, from scars, from every piece of herself she'd once been told to hide. For the first time in years, she let herself breathe deeply, freely, fully. She raised her glass to her reflection, her voice a whisper that carried through the room like a vow. Is greater than, For 5 years I was the ghost of your choices. Now I'm the woman who built her own kingdom from their ashes. Outside, the city glittered relentless, alive, eternal. Inside, Amara turned off the lights, a silhouette fading into the skyline she'd conquered not with revenge, but with rebirth. And as dawn began to bloom faintly over the Hudson, the jet that had brought her home gleamed on the runway, waiting, patient, ready for its next flight. Because women like Amara Sterling didn't return to their pasts. They rewrote them. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. And do well to click on the subscribe button and turn on notifications for the next story